So over the past year, I've thrown a lot of discs, starting with my beginner pack that I got from Dynamic Discs, to getting introduced to premium plastic through my first premium plastic discs. I've also dyed some discs and thrown a whole lot of discs as well. But these were kind of some of the discs that started my journey. All of the discs that I'm about to talk about are either retired or wall discs. Most of the base plastic stuff is retired, and the premium plastic stuff I do have are mostly just wall discs that I use for decoration. I started though with the Dynamic Discs starter set of the good old Truthful, base plastic burst, Escape, Truth, and Judge. I use these discs like crazy. They are super beat in now. I've since retired these discs, but they were very good starting discs. Highly recommend them for anybody else looking to get started in disc golf. It's a good place to start. From there, I started branching out into different kinds of mids and drivers, where I started to acquire more base plastic stuff just because that's what was cheap. And the two distance drivers I got was a Burst Captain and a Burst Trespass. Two very good discs, very good in base plastic. They beat in super quick to get that nice flip up if you want them to, or get them in a premium plastic so they don't flip. As for another fairway driver, this is a Latitude 64 River that I wiped the stamp off of because I thought the Burst Pink looked really cool. A very straight disc for a slower arm speed. Adding another mid-range to the section is a Burst Warrant, which starts off very flippy. You can beat it in to be even flippier, to get it to turn over more. I didn't use it as much as my Truth, just because my Truth was a very point-and-shoot disc for myself at the time, and I only used the Warrant for touchy, more understable shots. These were the base plastic discs that started it all. For a new player starting out, the base plastic flies true to the numbers, albeit slightly more overstable, just for the fact that with a slower arm speed, they are going to act a bit more overstable for a lower arm speed player, but as your arm speed increases, they will become a bit more flippier, especially as you beat them. As for my first introduction for premium plastic was a Dynamic Discs EMAC Truth. I use this disc all the time. It is more stable to overstable, whereas now, as my arm speed has increased a ton in the past year, if I rip it off of a T-pad, I can get it to turn over and then come back and has a nice finish at the end. But for me now, this is more of a point-and-shoot disc. The more and more I putted with the Judge, for those of you that don't know or haven't thrown one, it has a bead on the bottom, and for me, I was not a huge fan of that bead, so I was always looking for more options when I had the time. I was looking for something else that was more comfortable in my hand that didn't have a bead. So I moved to P2s. I got this blue one, was my first P2 that I got from a friend. I traded him for it. It was already pretty beaten in, and then I ended up getting this gray one new, and beating that in. And for however beaten these P2s got, they always flew the same. Great putters, no bead, felt a lot more comfortable in the hand, and I felt like I was more accurate with them. I've since moved on to white P2s, and then from there I moved on to PA2s, which fit my style a little bit better. I still love P2s. I love putting with P2s. Great plastic. But these ones, since these were my first two other putters outside of the Judge that I have, I retired them as well alongside the Judge. Before I did switch to P2s, I tried out some Gateway Wizards. Some friends and I, we all went in on a Gateway mystery box, and they sent us a bunch of wizards, so we each got like 3 to 4 wizards. These were two of the ones that I threw for a little bit, trying to figure out if I still did like the beat or not. On my putting putters, I don't. Still great plastic. This was a special blend one that I actually picked up from a used bin, and this one has a nice Eagles Crossing stamp on it that has the Gateway Underground stamped over top of it, but ended up never actually putting these in my bag because I didn't like the bead on the putters. Speaking of Gateway discs, these are two other Gateway discs that I got from the mystery box that we did. One being Factory Second Samurai and a Factory Second Glow Mystic. The Samurai, the numbers lie, at least on this one. My buddy has another one that he got from mystery box. The numbers also lie. The numbers on a Samurai is 12, 12 and a half, 5, -2, 1. but it is way more overstable than that. At least in this plastic, I think it's diamond plastic. Yeah, instead of a -2.1, I would give it probably a 0.3 or a 0.2. The Mystic, it's a 5.5, -3.0. I think these numbers are pretty accurate. It does flip a lot. I tried it out and it seemed a little bit too flippy for my game. I tried it out again recently. It seemed to be an uncontrollable flippy that I can't really work into. Good disc, just not for me, not for my game. Now this next set of discs, over the summer, I wanted to try my hand at dyeing some discs. So these are all discs that I have dyed. I've dyed a couple more outside of these, 2 of which I bag, but this one was the first dye I did. I did a shaving cream method burst dye on this one. It was a nice clear disc. That's premium plastic, so that would really hold the dye pretty well, and it did. I wish I had used a little bit more, just because you can see on this side here, it's still kind of clearish, but then you can see the blue. But the flight looks really cool. It kind of flashes in the air as it's flying. It's a Patrick Brown Aztec Serpent, so very overstable mid-range that I couldn't really find a spot for in my bag at the time. So now it's a wall disc, as are all of these discs. These are all wall discs now, because I don't throw them. They look pretty on the wall. I don't want to ruin the dye. So Aztec Serpent, this was my first dye. The next dye I did, or the next couple dyes, because I saw this one I really liked, but yeah, there's spots right there and there that didn't get any dye. So I wanted to improve. So the next burst I did was a Latitude 64 Opto Compass. I think this one turned out really well. I used a green dye for this one, but you can see kind of there's some yellow in this outer edge. The farther out it got, it kind of turned yellow, which is kind of unique, but I like it. Also a wall disc. And then I found this white Legacy Discs Enemy. Holds the dye really well. I tried my hand at kind of a pattern, and I wanted to do yellow, green, pink, green, yellow again. But I didn't get enough green on this section here, so the top part is just kind of yellow, but then you can see the pink streak across the middle. I think it looks kind of cool. You can still see there's a little bit of white in the middle, but other than that, I thought it turned out pretty well. But yeah, kind of a unique burst dye that I did, so wall disc. I started getting into stencil dyes. This was the first one I did. This is kind of a Burning Rose design that I found. This is on a Legacy Phenom. It's a good feeling disc, but I saw it in a used bin. It's got a bottom stamp. It's kind of a special edition Phenom. But I saw the top gray part was kind of open, was good for a dye, and because kind of the grayish plastic, I didn't want to do a burst dye because I didn't think that would show up very well on a gray plastic. On white plastic, it shows, and clear plastic, it shows up great. But for a gray plastic, I didn't think it would turn out that well. So I tried my hand at a stencil dye. I think this one turned out really well. This is a wall disc though. The next stencil dye I did, this was an MVP Wave that I found that I pulled out of a lake. There's no name or number on it, at least I could tell. I was like, well, it's an MVP Wave. I might as well try and put a wave on it. So I found a stencil, cut it out, dyed it. I think it turned out really well. Before I dyed it, I used it as my main kind of forehand disc. Because at the time, I kind of had a weak forehand. My forehand is a lot better now. It still needs work, though. I love how this turned out, so I like having it on my wall. The last stencil dye I did, I was able to find a Clash Discs Mango. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to put on it. I was like, well, it's a mango, so I might as well put a mango on it. And I think it turned out really nice. It's a very, very easy dye as well compared to the other ones I did, just because I just had to cut around the mango. There was no special stenciling or anything, so it was super easy to kind of get this one dyed. However, I think I left it in the pot for too long, and I think I warped it a little bit, so it's a little puddle top now. I had a lot of fun dyeing these discs. I think a lot of them, they all turned out really well. I might go back and try to dye some more discs in the future when I see discs that are primed for dyeing. You should definitely try, at least do the Shaving Cream Burst, because that one's super easy to do. You just leave it for I usually leave it for like 8 hours, so the color lasts longer and it's a bit more rich of a color. So yeah, if you haven't tried, you should definitely try. It's a lot of fun. Okay, these last couple of discs are tournament discs that I've gotten over the past year. last fall when I was just getting into it. CCF, the organization I'm a part of, Christian Campus Fellowship, hosted a small little tournament that they called the CCF Fall Classic. The design for this disc was actually designed by the organizer of the event, who was also a student at the time and a close friend as well. It's a depiction of David and Goliath. Then in the spring, he organized another tournament. He decided to design a disc with one of the minister's faces on it. And you can clearly see a face with this magnificent beard, CCF logo at the bottom, and disc golfer in the middle, with a nice gradient background. He spent a lot of time on this design, and I think it turned out really, really well. This one is a Dynamic Discs Captain that I threw for a little bit. You can kind of see that the design kind of got scuffed, so I retired it, and now it's a wall disc. And then this one is a Justice, which is super overstable mid-range. I think numbers are 5104. Super overstable, good disc. I did throw it for a little bit. I put it in my bag for a while, and then the design started to kind of chip as well. You can kind of see right there, there's a little mark. So I retired it. Now it's a wall disc as well. And these last two discs I got from the tournament I did recently that was hosted by the Rolla Disc Golf Club. I decided that I was going to make it my first tournament, so I got registered by the PDGA and signed up for the tournament. Players pack was just a disc. They had escapes, they had fuses, and they had pures. So I putt with PA2s, so pures were kind of out of the picture. I didn't really need a new putter. I've thrown an escape before, and I liked it. It was my base plastic escape, but I was looking, at the time, I was looking for that understable mid-range slot in my bag. And I knew fuses, numbers on a fuse, I think it's 5, 6, neg 1, 0. So flippy disc, flippy mid, very glidey flippy mid-range. So I was like, you know what, I will grab one of the fuses. The design is super sick. Fall Harvest with the DD at the bottom there. But this is an Opto Glimmer fuse. On the Opto Glimmer plastic, there is some flashing on the bottom that kind of made it, kind of felt like it was kind of ripping my skin when I threw it. It's got a super sick design on it though. My new fuses are in Latitude's gold ice plastic, which are super nice, a little bit more flexible, and I can turn them over, get them super straight. This Opto Glimmer fuse will always be a sentimental disc for me because it was my first tournament that I ever did, and it's just a great disc. If you don't have a fuse, at least go try one out. I don't know if a lot of people bag fuses for like that understable or like little flippy mid slot, but I do. I love it. The last disc, actually from the same tournament, it's got a Rolla Disc Golf Club stamp on it. So I managed to snag this disc by winning one of these CTPs on the Boonies course. In practice, I had parked hole 18 by like 4 or 5 feet. And I knew what I had to do. I threw the same disc. I threw it. I had an aiming point at like the top of a tree. So I aimed for the tree. I threw it. It faded back perfectly. I parked it like 5 to 7 feet from the basket, winning the CTP. I won this disc from that CTP. Super fun tournament. I'm glad I won this disc. Unfortunately, it is a judge. I don't putt with judges, as I mentioned earlier, because I don't like the bead on the bottom. But super cool disc. It'll always mean something to me as like the first thing I ever won from a tournament.